What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to the Locked On Pirates podcast. I am, of course, your host, Ethan Smith. To my right, of course, is Gary Morgan, joining us as he does every single Monday. It is May 16th, and maybe I was thinking about a rebrand here of calling this the Locked On No Hits but Still Getting a Win Pirates podcast, but we're going to talk about that today, obviously. History in the making. I believe it's only the sixth time that it ever happened, so me and Gary will get into that. The rotation also looked very good over this past week, so we'll get into that a little bit more as well. I got into it a little bit last week, but is the rotation turning a corner? We'll have to wait and see. And the Pirates, for all intents and purposes, in the middle of May are 4 games under 500. Is that intriguing, and can they keep it up? And if they do keep it up, how intriguing does it get down the stretch? We're going to talk about all that and more today on the Locked On Pirates podcast. Thank you for making me and Gary your first listen of the day every single Monday, as you always do. Follow me on Twitter at MVP_Ethan. Follow the podcast on Twitter at Locked On Pirates. And, of course, follow Gary at GaryMo2007. And with all of that said, let's get into today's episode.
You are Locked On Pirates, your daily Pittsburgh Pirates podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And normally this is where I would say, welcome back. I'll be honest, I didn't get to watch yesterday's game, but I got to see highlights. And, yeah, I don't know who had a worse weekend, the Cincinnati Reds or the Toronto Maple Leafs. I couldn't tell you who, but wow. The Pittsburgh Pirates won yesterday to cap off their homestand in arguably the most hilarious way possible, getting no hit and winning the game. Of course, 3 straight walks in the 8th inning, and then Hayes reaching on a fielder's choice, scored the lone run of the game. Hunter Green, by the way, looked phenomenal.
He was great.
Yeah.
Quintana was equal to the task, and I really mean that.
Yeah, and
dominant.
I am very excited, and this may be kind of stretching it, but I am very excited to see Hunter Green and Roansy Contreras go head-to-head for a couple years. I think that's going to be a fun little rivalry that those two can build, but it's the day after whatever happened. I mean, I don't even know how to describe it. It's just
Should I
wild.
start my comments? I mean, my comment is Cincinnati. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, how many times can you say that you went and watched your favorite team, the Pittsburgh Pirates, go to the game, you witness a no-hitter, and your team wins while being no-hit? That is something that will probably never happen again. And I did actually have somebody yesterday comment and ask, have the Pirates done this before? No, but they've come very close. I forget what year it was, but I know they were getting no hit going into the bottom of the 9th inning, and Josh Harrison hit a walk-off home run against the Los Angeles Dodgers. Oh, yeah, it was the 10th inning, yeah.
And Josh Harrison walked it off, yeah.
Yeah, so technically they have been no hit through 9 innings and won a game before.
But that was against Rich Hill.
Yeah.
So both times they had to wait the guy out until his arm almost fell off. So.
Oh, yeah. It's interesting, man. It really is. And I mean, again, there's obvious negatives to this. I mean, the team didn't get a hit. There's obvious negatives, but when you come out of it with a win, you come out of it with a win. And I mean, for all intents and purposes, again, they took 2 of 4 against Cincinnati. I don't remember exactly what our predictions were. I think we said 4 and 2.
We both said 4 and 2 for the week, and 4 and 3 for the week. That's what we ended up with. So.
Yep. It just did not happen.
Just not the way we thought.
Yeah. They pick up the series victory over the Dodgers. They pick up a series split over the Reds. And I'll be honest, if they can move on that trajectory for, the next 2 or 3 weeks, which we'll get into later, things are going to get really interesting. And, I mean, again, I don't think there's a lot of stock into it yet. We are still in the middle of May. This team is still in a rebuilding phase, blah, blah, blah. You've heard all that. But things like this don't happen every day. They just don't. I mean, you're not going to be able, again, when is the next time that this legitimately will happen? Knowing baseball, it'll probably happen tonight, so everybody forgets that the Pirates did it. But
I mean, it's been 14 years, and it was a long time before then, so it's obviously a rare occurrence. Pretty cool. not something that you want to see a lot. But
No.
the win is the win, and against a rival like that, especially when your pitcher Jose Quintana deserved a win in that game.
Yep.
He pitched his ass off, and just he was dominant, just dominant in that game, and so fun to watch a veteran just do his craft, man, and that's what it was. And I mean, his stuff nowhere near Hunter Green, but he just knows what he's doing with every pitch, and very, very fun to see. He has exceeded expectations like crazy for me.
Oh, yeah, and it's nice to see, too, as you alluded to, 7 innings pitched, 3 hits, no earned runs, 5 Ks, only 1 walk. His ERA now has dropped to a 2.19, so obviously, clearly the best starting pitcher on the staff at the moment. Of course, Chris Stratton and David Bednar came into relief, only allowing 1 combined hit. David Bednar just did his thing, as he always does. I think he picked up save number 7 in 7 opportunities, so you like to see that as well. Again, I mean, what's very scary right now to me is the pitching staff is coming along, which we'll get into a lot more after our first break. But if this offense can eventually bring itself around, man, the Pirates might actually have a formula here. And I mean, you already alluded to me before we started recording about Roansy Contreras and O'Neal Cruz come up on this roster and make a real impact, which I know they probably can. You're looking at a nice little roster right here, right now.
Yeah, we're talking just them, too. I mean, you got Greg Allen coming back here, and, I think a lot of people were at least a little intrigued to see what he could bring to the table. Cal Mitchell's been hitting. Mm-hmm. Canaan Smith and Jigba's been hitting. Hey, if you want to get really crazy, Leover Peguero's been hitting.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot they could do. This team is still going to evolve as the season goes on. And I think they're already kind of exceeding expectations. You can make the argument they're doing it against bad teams, but, I mean, they split a series with the Padres. They just took a series from the Dodgers, too. I mean, that stuff's not supposed to be happening, right? I mean, if everybody's dire, they're only going to win 50-game predictions are to come true. They're not supposed to be where they are right now.
Oh, yeah.
So, hey, take it for what it's worth. I still don't expect the playoffs this year. I still expect them to be pretty bad, but I think a top 10 pick is probably in question.
Yeah, and it's also, I mean, it's a step in the right direction, which is something me and you have definitely been looking forward to for them to eventually get there.
Yeah.
And, of course, looking ahead to this week, they have the Cubs and the Cardinals. Of course, if you take the Cardinals and the Brewers off of the Pirates' schedule right now, they're a winning baseball team for all intents and purposes and realistically. So we'll see if they can have some success against their division rivals. Me and Gary will make our predictions later. But before we get into that, if you guys want to bet on Pirates Cubs tonight at 7:40 Eastern Time, make sure you go to betonline.net. Of course, BetOnline is where the game starts. Our partners over at BetOnline continue to be the number one source for all of your betting needs and sports info. Find all of the latest odds, news, and sports developments, including this year's basketball playoffs, MLB baseball scores, UFC and MMA fights, and boxing, and even next season's NFL futures. BetOnline is your continued source for all of your sporting wagering information, from live betting to playoffs, esports, and more. So head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action, and of course, BetOnline is where the game starts. Now, one thing very, very intriguing about this series overall, and really the week overall, I'd say outside of Friday and Tuesday, was the starting rotation just looked good. And as I said, if you remove Friday and Tuesday, 1 run against the Dodgers, 3 runs against the Dodgers, 4 runs against the Reds, 1 run against the Reds, 0 runs against the Reds. I would take that every day of the week, honestly. And my wonderful streak continues where the Pirates are now 10-1 when they score more than 5 runs in a game.
I mean, I think there's some reason for a little bit of optimism there. I do. I'm pretty concerned about Bryce Wilson. I don't think that he's trending in the right direction.
Yeah.
And I don't even like the look of him on the mound right now. So to me, he's a guy that is probably going to be in the mix for being replaced by a Rowanzi. Or I'm starting to get the impression that they might be interested in using Dylan Peters. And I don't mean as an opener anymore. I think we might get to the point where he just jumps into the rotation.
Is anybody really going to be mad about that? I mean, I've enjoyed seeing him as an opener for the first couple innings of games. He just goes out there and takes care of business. And I mean, realistically,
yeah. I don't think everything has to be about making someone mad. I'm just observing what I think they're going to do. I think Dylan Peters is in that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
But we talk about the rotation starting to come together, man. Like, you get like 3 of them kind of like in the we're going to give you a chance every night category, as opposed to we're going to blow up every time we're out. You start to like wonder what this team could get done, because that bullpen is really, really not bad. As long as they don't have to use Hembry.
Of all people, yeah. But that's the other thing, too, with the trajectory from last season to this year, is the bullpen was very strong last year, too. And, of course, with a lot of the trades that they made, of course, Richard Rodriguez, Clay Holmes, all those guys all being moved, the bullpen saw a dip, obviously. I mean, that's going to happen. But if the team stays competitive and the starting pitchers also continue to improve, there's no reason for them to move on from these guys. And truthfully, unless they are just like completely out of the water come the trade deadline, which is a very big possibility. We still have 2 months to get to that point. Maybe they move on from some of these guys, but also I wouldn't be surprised if they hold on to them, because moving into next year, if you hold on to these guys, you already fixed one of your big problems if they continue to be good out of the bullpen.
Well, let me ask you, who you holding on to?
Who would I hold on to?
Like, who are you afraid they would trade? There's really one guy in the bullpen
that they would trade.
Chris Stratton.
Yeah, Stratton would be one.
The rest of them aren't going anywhere unless they are beaten out.
Yeah.
You might see them trade somebody like Underwood Jr. because they pretty much ate half of the life of his arm up last year. So I could see them moving him. But for the most part, man, they control all these guys. They control all these guys for as long as they want. Like Chase DeYoung. Mm-hmm. They got him for 5 more years if they want. Like Bednar, 5 more years. Like, name a guy that they don't have ultimate control over, including the rotation.
Yeah.
That's what they've created here. So, like, when we start talking about trades, I'm not worried about that one way or another. And to be blunt, Chris Stratton is getting traded one way or another. Him and Heath Hembry, if you can manage to prop his corpse up and make him look like a pitcher again, that's it.
Yeah, and realistically, moving forward, we keep talking about Dylan Peters potentially being a part of the rotation. Bryce Wilson struggles. I would be perfectly content with what you said, where if they move on from Stratton, Underwood, and Hembry. That's fine. Fine
Sure.
And dandy. That means that you're left with, well, Quintana probably at some point too. I mean, if he continues to pitch like this, I mean, you're going to get some team that's going to say, wow, he's pitching under 3 right now.
Unless he has like 8 wins and a 1.45 ERA at the trade deadline, and he goes to Ben Cherington on his knees and says, I'll come back for $2 million next year.
Yeah, he's
going to go.
Yeah. So then, theoretically, so that leaves, like we said, no Stratton, no Quintana, no Hembry, no Underwood. Honestly, the only one that you're really losing out there that is a major loss is Quintana just right now. So then you're looking at a possibility of having what? Like Rowanzi Contreras, Zach Thompson, Mitch Keller. Probably
maybe Bryce Wilson's in your pen.
Yeah, Bryce Wilson, you can move him to the bullpen because you've seen the success Will Crow has had. Yep. Maybe Bryce Wilson moves over there and has the same kind of deal. And then you still have some of these other guys too, like Max Kranick. He could
absolutely.
He'd be thrown in there. And that's the thing that me and you have talked about on this podcast so many times is it's so different from the past couple of years to now is because they actually have a plethora of options.
Yep. That's the goal, man.
Yeah.
This is the goal. And now, you can talk about Kyle Nicholas in Double-A if you want. That's a bullpen option.
Well, considering they love They love to
View
bring
could
everybody
make it.
else up. I was going to say
Yeah,
they don't
but
bring anybody up from AAA anymore. They bring them all up from AA, so you never know.
Cody Bolton's a guy that could come up and impact the rotation. There's so much they could do. And if things really got crazy, I wouldn't roll out them getting somebody. I mean, it might be a good year to buy somebody. You know, you can use your prospects sometimes to buy somebody at this period too, because you're going to have to probably augment the team next year. So if they're overachieving, hell yeah, bring somebody in.
Oh, yeah, and then there's not really a disbenefit to that as long as you don't make a Chris Archer type trade.
Sure.
But the reason I say that is a lot of people would say, okay, cool, they're buying. That means they need to make the playoffs. Not necessarily. They could be making that move for next year, which is a big thing that
Absolutely.
they could do. And that's like something that I think a lot of people need to keep in their mind is you might actually see the Pirates be buyers at this deadline, especially if they continue to play this well. Because, again, me and Gary are not trying to fool you. They're probably not making the playoffs. I can name 7 or 8 teams in the National League right now that are better than the Pittsburgh Pirates. Most people can't. Maybe even 9 or 10, depending on who you ask. But at the end of the day, sometimes it's not all on paper. Most people expected the Dodgers to do what they did to us last Tuesday for 3 games.
Look at Boston. Most people had Boston like at least in contention for the AL East. And
Not right
they're
now.
on track to lose 100 games.
Yeah, the one that actually way off topic that gets me right now, man, and I kind of expected it, but it still baffles me a little bit that the Detroit Tigers are as bad as they are right now.
Yeah, the Tigers are underachieving.
Heavy.
But you know what they did, man? They did what the Padres did to a degree. They got a bunch of young kids up there. They knew they were going to bring torque up this year.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And they figured, well, let's go ahead and let's buy a few pieces and a few toys instead of like letting our trucks, run the race for a minute here and let them gel a little bit. It would be like what people wanted the Pirates to do this year.
Mm-hmm.
And you buy a few pieces and it's fun for the fans, but the team doesn't come together around it and it doesn't quite work. And then you're blocking a few prospects. You're not getting eyes on them. And it just kind of convolutes some things. That team will be fine, I think, towards the end of the year. But I think they're doing enough damage at the beginning that they're going to have a hard time recovering from it in that division.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I'll applaud the Pirates for is at least they've been consistent. At least, I mean, the rotation is getting to a point where they're being consistent. They're either consistently bad one week or consistently good one week. I don't think there's been a week where they really just came out and you saw them just pitch lights out one day and terrible the next, like for 3 days straight. I mean, they're being very consistent. And again, you look at how everything is going and the trajectory that it's going. If you would have told me before the season started that in the middle of May this team would only be 4 games under 500, I probably would have laughed. I probably would have been like, yeah, the Dodgers, Padres, Brewers, and Cardinals and Cubs are on our schedule. Like, it doesn't look good. But, of course, the Cubs are even underachieving right now. I mean, the Pirates are still a third-place NL Central team.
I think that's where they'll finish, too. The Cubs stink. I think the Cubs are worse than the Reds. I really do.
I mean, who's their best pitcher? Kyle Hendricks?
Yes, and he'll be traded as soon as somebody will take that money.
And then after that, it's what, Stroman?
Do you think Stroman's good?
I mean, not saying he's good. I'm saying best on their roster.
Yeah. I mean, they're a bad team. They are. And they're going to trade Wilson Contreras because they can't re-sign him.
Oh, yeah. No way in hell.
So
Which, I'm
they're
sorry.
They're just going to get worse.
I know it would never happen in a million years, but Wilson Contreras on this roster, man, I'm not going to give Pirates fans this. You guys are going to literally clip this and send me to the depths of Pirates Twitter hell for trying to say that I want Wilson Contreras in a Pirates uniform. So with that said, before I go on a tangent about wanting Wilson Contreras in black and gold, if you want to wear black and gold and feel good about it and have a lot of energy, of course, the city of Pittsburgh has been electric over the last couple weeks with hockey, baseball, the NFL draft, and all that. So spending a lot of that energy, sometimes you need a very good snack, and you should invest in Built Bars. Of course, Built Bar is the best tasting protein bar on the planet, and they just sent me my new favorite flavor, birthday cake puffs. These things are absolutely phenomenal. They are covered in white chocolate, covered in all kinds of things. And imagine dipping your finger into a plastic tub of birthday cake frosting and then opening your eyes and realizing that it was only 150 calories with 16 grams of protein. That's what it's like to eat a birthday cake puff from Built Bar. And if you haven't tried puffs, by the way, they are actually very phenomenal. They are all chocolate-covered marshmallow protein bars. Think about that for a second. S'mores are great. S'mores have a lot of calories, a lot of sugar. These, not a lot of that at all. You're talking about 16 grams of protein, 150 calories, 9 grams of sugar, and this limited time flavor is an amazing option if you were looking for a healthy way to get flavor and variety in your day. All Built Puffs are covered in 100% real chocolate, and that means that with Built, you can eat healthy and actually enjoy doing it. And they are made with collagen protein, which your body absorbs more efficiently and provides tons of health benefits. So go to Built.com, use the promo code LOCK15, and get 15% off of your order when you invest in the best protein bars on planet Earth. Also, make sure you check out the Locked On Now podcast. Of course, they are covering everything going on in the world of sports every single day. So make sure you do that. Make sure you do a bunch of that other stuff as well. And me and Gary have kind of alluded to this all episode, but again, 15-19. Who would have thought? For all you meme lovers, because I know you're there on Pirates Twitter somewhere, when Paul Rudd was on Hot Ones, he said, who would have thought? Not me. Yeah, that's honestly where I'm at right now. And 15-19, and you look at the schedule ahead for the remainder of the month. As Gary said, the Cubs are not that great. That's who they have for the first part of this week. Then they face a team they have not beat yet in the St. Louis Cardinals. I think they changed that this time around. St. Louis is kind of on a downslope a little bit. And Paul DeJong getting optioned, man, that was something. I looked at his stats and understood why, but it definitely was not something I expected to happen this year. But
it's kind of incredible how he's fallen off, isn't it?
Yeah. And then, I mean, you end the remainder of the month, West Coast galore. You're playing the Rockies, the Padres, and the Dodgers. So that's how they end the month. So, I mean, realistically, if you go out of this month and they're in the same spot they're in now, 4 games under 500, going into June, what's the next steps you take? I mean, do you take the step of we're just here and this is who we are? Or do you actually, like you said, get aggressive and bring up Contreras and Cruz and some other guys?
I think that independent of the record, that's happening. I mean, like, those two are going to make this roster, as soon as they can, and no later than mid-June and early June for some of them. They're going to make the roster this year. They're going to make their respective rotations / roles in the infield or outfield, wherever the hell they decide to play Cruz. And it's going to make an impact on this team. He's going to hit a little. Rowanzi's going to pitch a little. I actually expect a little more out of Rowanzi than Cruz, if that means anything to you. But this team can't hit.
No.
They've got to infuse offense. And as happy as I've been with Jack Sawinski overall, I could very easily see him. He's under 200 now. I could very easily see him getting optioned and them bringing up Kanan Smith and Jigba or Cal Mitchell or something like that. One of those two. They're both hitting. So you're going to see some more youngsters come up here, and I think then they'll see how that goes for about a month and a half. If they like what they're seeing, or maybe they overachieve, maybe they add something. I don't see that because rookies usually kind of play like Jack Sawinski. That doesn't mean that you expect him to stink forever, but
it happens.
That's what you do.
Oh, yeah, and what you're alluding to as well with the offensive struggles, their lineup yesterday, which featured Gamble, Hayes, Reynolds, Vogelbach, Tsutsugo, Van Meter, Sawinski, Rodolfo Castro, and Michael Perez. Of that, only 4 of those players were hitting over 250. That's Gamble, Hayes, Reynolds, Gamble, Hayes, Vogelbach, and Castro. And of that as well, 4 of them were batting below the Mendoza line. That's Tsutsugo, Van Meter, Sawinski, and Perez. And then you have Reynolds, who is still kind of in his little funk that I think he will eventually get out of, which will then in turn help this team, because I think he's eventually going to get out of that funk. But one thing moving forward that I hope eventually happens, especially if this team continues on the trajectory that they're on, for the love of God, can Derek Shelton just throw his best lineups out there? Stop with this, excuse my language, stop with this fucking setting lineups a week in advance and giving random players off days that they don't need. I'm going to be honest, it was Sunday yesterday. I was surprised Hayes and Reynolds were in the lineup. I thought that was a godforsaken, like, they can't play on Sundays. That's it. And
he kind of got confronted with that by Dejan Kovacevic.
Yeah.
A couple weeks ago, whenever he did sit both of them for a game, he said to him, Derek, do you ever think about like maybe not sitting both of your guys like for a home game?
Mm-hmm.
Since we're you're struggling to sell tickets and everything. And Derek was like, "What? I didn't even think about that." Like said he was going to think about it moving forward, and we haven't seen it since.
No. And again, I understand that you've always said it, and we love to say it this way. Yoshi is going to be in the lineup because there's 4 million reasons why. You can't take Vogelbach out of the lineup. He's hitting too well. He's just doing his job at the DH spot. He's doing exactly what the Pirates needed at a DH spot. He's hitting 260, getting on base. He's being a speedster. I mean, hell, he might lead the league in stolen bases. But there's no absolute reason at this point that Michael Chavis should not be in the lineup every day.
Yeah, but Michael Chavis hasn't gotten a whole lot of opportunity. He's been in a lot of games, but he hasn't started a lot. He's only started 19.
Yeah, and that makes no sense.
I don't understand it, except for maybe they're not trying to find out what Michael Chavis's role is as much as he's in the exact role they want him to be.
Yeah.
In other words, they don't feel they need to see anymore to know that this is what he is. Okay, I guess. I personally would want to explore that power potential a little bit more. But, okay, I get what you're doing. Yoshi, though, his clock's going to run out at some point. Even this team is not afraid to eat a couple $1 million for a guy that just isn't going to hit. So... No.
And if he's not hitting, what does he offer you?
Nothing.
He's
legit
not great.
Nothing.
He's not great defensively. He's not fast. He's not like a bench bat or anything.
No, in yesterday's game, I will say, he finally got around on a ball and pulled it against Hunter Green of all people. He pulled a 98 mile an hour fastball to the right side. He hasn't hit a hit all season to the pull side. That should tell you something about how off he is. He's seeking everything away.
Yep.
And he's just flailing for walks. And it's just not something that can be in the middle of your lineup. It's a waste.
Yeah, and after who batted after him too, I know you had some things and choice words to say about the Pirates losing Bo Sulser to the Baltimore Orioles because they, I guess, decide they want to keep Josh Van Meter and Cole Tucker on the roster.
There's just a lot of options that they had. In all sincerity, look at who's performed. Like, has Heath Hembry performed well enough to be on this team?
No.
Over Bo Sulser? No, not to me. And again, it's a rookie. He's pitched 6-7 innings. I'm not gonna this ain't the hill I'm gonna die on.
No.
But I don't know. To me, that was a weird choice. I'm not really sure what the hell Tucker would have to do to prove that he's worthy of another chance up here. I don't know. Clearly, they're holding out some kind of hope. I'm not.
You know what I think they're holding out for? I have a theory. So I think that they're waiting on Vanessa Hudgens to break up with him, so that he just gets really pissed off and starts taking it out on the baseball, and then just starts hitting bombs for days. And then stays on the team just long enough. And then once he gets out of that funk, how when guys get broken up with, they immediately go to the gym. I think that's what they're waiting on to happen for Cole Tucker. I have all of my fun little Pirates theories.
I'd hope he gets money hungry because he's really, really very quickly approaching just not a major leaguer. That's just all there is to it. It happens. And
it does.
I guess I'm a little frustrated that this team just seemingly can't make that decision. I mean, it's right in front of you. I'm sorry, there's just nothing there. He's been in the system for 7.5 years. Enough. I mean, enough. You pulled the plug on Will Craig pretty quick, right? I mean, like, you pulled the plug on Jose Osuna, I think, about 10 days into your tenure. So, like, let's pull the plug.
Well, and that's one thing that I talked about with Adam Bittner on Friday was one thing that I think and we're wrapping up here as well, and this is where I'll leave it. With the team in the state of where they are, I think accountability needs to start coming into play here. People need to be starting to be held accountable. One person that I kept saying that about, and I said it on Friday, is Oscar Marin. At some point, he's going to have to produce something. And you already said it before the year started. You already said it when we got into everything in the offseason when there wasn't a lot to talk about. If Mitch Keller does not see a massive improvement at some point this year, they are choosing Mitch Keller and some of these young arms over Oscar Marin. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. They're not going to trade Mitch Keller in favor of Oscar Marin. I'll tell you that now. But not only Oscar Marin either. You got to start holding these guys accountable for what they're doing. Brian Reynolds, albeit $13.5 million over the next 2 years. He's hitting .209 right now. You got to hold everybody accountable. Hayes had a crappy error. I forget what game it was that they ended up losing because of that. But even your best players have to be held accountable because that's how you build championship teams. You think every single championship team has had like, oh yeah, the best player is doing his thing even though he's hitting .240. We're not going to hold him accountable for that. Which is why me and Gary usually agree on this. The Los Angeles Dodgers would be an unstoppable force if Dave Roberts wasn't their manager. But that's where I'll leave that. Gary, what you got going on this week? There's a lot going on. Of course, it's NL Central week.
There's always a lot going on, yeah. Well, honestly, I know I got 5 thoughts going on at 5 on Monday. I'll probably write 2 or 3 pieces this week. Pretty active time right now for baseball. Pirates Fan Forum this week. We're on DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. We're going to have Josh Taylor from 93.7 The Fan and KDK TV on with us. So should be a good time. And I think the Bucs are going to have a good week. I really do.
What's your prediction for the week?
I think we'll stick with 4-3.
I will go on the inverse and say 3-4.
All right.
I think they pick up 1 win against the Cardinals. I think they lose 1 against the Cubs, 3-4. I think they win a series and lose a series. It wouldn't surprise me, but I do think they're going to eventually get tired of losing to the St. Louis Cardinals all the time and eventually go in there and win one. Pirates-Cubs tonight, though. The Pirates are undecided on who they're pitching, which means we are probably getting Dylan Peters as an opener tonight. They will face off against Wade Miley, whose ERA is higher than my student loans. So we will see how that goes. But with all that said, guys, this is the Locked On Pirates podcast. I'm Ethan Smith. That's Gary Morgan. And with that said, I will see you on the flip side.